Hi, this is Trisha again, and welcome to another session on education. And now we're going to talk about education, transition, and independence, and building a parent, teacher, and student relationship to ensure secondary success. And right now we are going to talk to Donna Young, and she is currently teaching in the Cabot High School area, in Cabot area. She is with the Cabot High School, and she is a special ed teacher at the high school. She is currently in her 21st year of teaching special ed. She's a graduate from UCA. She has a BSc in mildly handicapped K-12 degree. She has taught in the North Little Rock School District. She's taught in Bologna. She has also taught in Cabot. She's married to another good friend of mine, Travis Young. And she has a fourth grader. Is that correct? Fourth grader. Yep. Same age as mine. Yep. And a senior. So she has a lot on her plate. So welcome, Donna. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, we are just so honored to have you. I know you have so much to offer us. So I want to make sure that we get it all in. So let's start it out. And will you please tell me exactly what is transition?
Okay, so transition is really, if you think about it, there's two different ways that you can look at transition. If you're a special ed parent, special ed student, or a special ed guardian, anybody that comes along, transition is a big thing in the IEP that starts before the children turn 16. And it really just wraps around what the kids want to do, where they want to be after they graduate, what classes can they take in the high school that will help them get there, and what are different things that they can do or teachers can help them do throughout the years in order to make them successful for post-secondary. Now, there's the other part of it is there's a transition class. We are lucky enough at Cabot High School that our administration allows us to have a transition class that involves outside agencies and helps kids prepare for post-secondary, whether it's a job, whether it's college, whether it's a technical trade. We help them get set up for whatever it is to make them successful for post-secondary.
So do you start serving at a specific age, or do you start serving at a specific grade? How does it work?
So for the transition class, we are at the high school level, and our class takes in only seniors. And the reason why we take in only seniors is because we are talking about, the next step for them after they graduate. By law, we have a grant through Arkansas Vocational Rehab, and we can only take in 25 students. So that kind of limits us on whether we can take in 10th or 11th graders. So we try to fill up with seniors, and if we don't, there have been times in the past where we have included a junior or two. Now, transition, if you're looking at it just on the IEP, because sometimes it is, you can kind of get a little mix back and forth. Like I said, transition on the IEP starts prior to them turning 16. But a lot of school districts these days, because transition is one of the big words that's in the special ed field, a lot of school districts now are starting transition at 8th grade. So they're looking at 8th grade, what these kids think they might want to do, at least kind of get them started in that direction.
Now, is this something that the school district should bring to the attention of the guardian?
Absolutely. And I think, even like you said, we've both got daughters in the 4th grade. And I know necessarily that my daughter may not be, 100%, I want to be this. But even just getting them along the lines of thinking, okay, you can do this, you can do that. Just thinking about just those little steps each year that you can kind of put in their little brains about, what they want to do or what they want to be when they grow up. I think any level that you can start that at is good.
Yeah, like what they're gifted in or what they just happen to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what levels of special ed do you have in your classroom? Can you describe that to me?
Wow. So this is I think this is a hard question for a lot of districts. We're, like I said, I can't tell you how fortunate we are to be in Cabot School District, not to boast about my own school district, but we are pretty fortunate in that we have teachers who all work together for the common good. Before, they might have said, oh, this class can only service these types of kids. But we are very lucky in that we have kids who are in resource, we have kids who are in inclusion, we have kids who are in CBI, we have kids who are indirect. So if you have a kid that's in resource, most of your parents are going to know that's a 1 to 8 classroom. So they go to a separate classroom. It's also called maybe a pull-out program, I think, in the younger levels. But of course, at our secondary, it's just resource. You have resource history, English, math, science. And so they're actually pulled out for that instruction. Then, of course, I have kids that are inclusion. Inclusion, they are in the regular classroom. They get all their instruction in the regular classroom with a regular classroom teacher and an inclusion teacher, a special ed teacher. I also have kids who are indirect. They don't have any other special ed classes. They have a special education folder holder who checks on them from time to time. Usually, I check on my kids weekly, but just to make sure that they're doing okay in their regular classes and that their accommodations and modifications are being met. That's a big thing for your indirect kids. It's just making sure that those things are met. And then also, one of my good friends who used to work at the high school, who's at another placement now, she was in the CBI classroom. And I think there are a lot of teachers who think that because they're CBI, they need to remain in the CBI program the whole time, and that is not the case. At any point, if someone came in and said, okay, we've got this student and I really think they need your services, but their IQ is a little on the low scale, they're a lot lower than any of your other students. They only have independent living skills more than academic skills. Can you still use them in your program? Absolutely. There are modifications for each one of our students. And so I'm big on including everybody.
So you said that there's only 25 slots. And I know there's a lot of kids. I mean, that's a lot of kids. So a lot of these school districts, especially with ours, I mean, we have a pretty good student population. So how do they get chosen?
Well, so what we do is so let's say the year before, usually like in February, I'll put out a list to the special education teachers and just say, hey, is there anybody in your classroom now that's an 11th grader that you think needs or would benefit from the transition class? So we'll put it on a Google Docs, and they'll put in people as the days go on. And so then we'll go back and look. The big thing is attendance. Attendance is a huge thing for us because to be part of the program, they do need to attend about 90%. And that's a huge number. But now we do take into account, we've had a little girl this year that's been in theater. I know that she's not going to be there because she's got plays, or if they have medical, I know that there's going to be times when they can't come. So I look at that first, and then we do assessments. We'll do a couple of different assessments to see if they know how to write a resume, to see if they know how to fill out a job application. And if they know all of those things, they don't need my class. And I try to, if they already have those things, I try to say, JAG would be a good program for you, or internship would be a good program for you, and try to gear them towards that way instead of my class.
So you just mentioned the other programs like JAG and internship, and then, when we're talking about transition, are these programs that are offered or should be offered in all school districts, or is this just in Cabot, or?
Well, I think JAG and internship are probably pretty standard in your high schools. Maybe not in your smaller school districts, like Mount Vernon and Ola. I consider that a smaller school district compared to us. So I'm not sure about the smaller settings like that, but any of your programs, any of the schools in the state of Arkansas that I know of can have the transition program. It's just up to your supervisor, your LEA supervisor, or your special ed coordinator to make that jump.
So if somebody may not have this in their school district, they could probably maybe just start with their principal, maybe. I mean, that would be a easy first step, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. When they're doing your annual reviews, every one of your special ed students, will have an annual review every year. And that could be something that a parent could ask for. I've heard of these transition classes, where they help the kids get, jobs, or, can we put them in the JAG class with a helper that will help them get a job? Because that may be an option too, because
Yeah.
I mean, they follow accommodations and modifications just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be, but I would definitely start with your principal or your special education folder holder, as we call them.
Okay. Yep. That's good to, that's good to
You could
know.
always ask, right?
So with your students, what does the program look like? What curriculum do you use?
Well, so we use a program called School to Career, and it's by Walsh Education, WALCH. And it's, God, it's just a really good book. It is a little bit older, but sometimes it's hard to find newer books that have everything that you want to use in them. So I use this book as like my big tool, and then I pick little things here and there that fit along with it. As far as like we do resume creators, we do job application creators. We use a lot of Google Forms. And so our big book, though, it just gives us like specific subjects like the future, getting a job, communication, getting along with others, challenges at work, getting ahead at work, and then we kind of pop in little things that go along, because we'll have, like, we may have a week. This week we had a week where communication was a big thing with some of our kids that are in their jobs. And so we had to tell them, okay, this is how you schedule an appointment with your boss. If something's going on at work, yes, they can talk to me or someone that you'll meet later, Miss Andrea. They can talk to us, but we always try to help them get in with their bosses too. So every day we have little discussions amongst all of us about what's going on and things like that. So we have an overall curriculum, but it's a lot of hands-on.
Well, and that's interesting that you would, that you're talking about how kind of the curriculum kind of changes based on what the need is at that current week. And it's good that they're able to experience these things while they're still kind of under your umbrella, as opposed to getting out of school and then going out.
Absolutely.
And then they may be experiencing these things and they're not being led. So that's a really, it's kind of like you want your kids to experience things while they're still under your roof. So it's kind of the same thing for you guys.
That's absolutely true.
So how do you see your students benefiting from the program?
As far as my students, the big thing for me is them figuring out what they want to do, how they're going to do it, and then continuing on after school. We prepare them and trying to help them find a job, getting a job, and that's what we just said, how you keep a job. Because there's sometimes, I'll give you an instance. We had a student that he was working in a job. This was before he got to us, and he was telling us about it. He was working in a job, and him and the manager didn't have really good communication. Like, he threw a plate at the manager's head one night. Okay. So we talked about it one day. We were like, if the boss would have just told you this and you would have just said this to your boss, this would have been okay. And he was like, yeah, you're right. I probably wouldn't have had to throw a plate at his head. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, there you go. So, it's not about, like I said, it's not just about getting a job or finding a job. It's about keeping that job. So we do all of those soft skills in the classroom. Like I said, communication is a big one. But then we also help them with where do they want to go? If they want to go to college, where do they want to go to college? How do you fill out the FAFSA? How do you fill out college forms? How do you fill out trade school forms? How do you fill out another job application? And where do I go from here? And who are all these people that I can help, that I can get services from? So that's one of the other big things. Sometimes it's hard for parents to know exactly where to go to get these programs.
Right.
Not that I know all the programs, because I don't, but I'm definitely not afraid to call anybody and ask. So, like you said, they're under our umbrella, so I can call and just ask what they have to service our kids, and that's where I see our kids getting the biggest. Because we've heard other kids that are just in the other classes, and they're like, well, I wish I had somebody do this for me, or I wish I had somebody help me with this, and
right.
So that's what we try to do.
So I do like that you guys, and this is something in talking to everybody on this educational these sessions, is one thing that I do appreciate as a mother of a child with special needs. I do appreciate that you guys continue to say, we really try to see what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, what gets them going each day. as opposed to just finding a job or putting them in a position. Again, I appreciate that you guys, and I do keep hearing that, figure out what your kids are interested in, figure out what their loves are. And it certainly makes it easier for everybody.
I think so. I mean, I love my job. It makes it a whole lot easier for me to go to work every day knowing that I do.
Yeah, and I know that we both have a friend in common who graduated out of your program, and she loved horses, loved animals, and she ended up when she was able to go on and work for the animal shelter, correct?
Yes,
through your program.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. And I guess I should have noticed that, or should have said earlier, that a lot of the kids that are in our program, they do get offered full-time positions after they graduate. The community
something they love.
Yeah, absolutely. Community centers hired some of ours. Daycares, we've had several daycares hire our kids after they graduate, and so we've had. It's a good program.
How have you seen what impact have you seen on the community? And how do you see that this impacting the community when you guys are working with them in this program?
Well, and I should start off by saying too that we are very blessed here in Cabot to have such a good community that works with our kids and is very helpful about coming on board with this program, because we have about 40 businesses that work with our students, and so that's really good. But to me, the big thing is, they get new employees. In our program, they don't have to pay the employee and they don't cover their insurance. So that kind of takes a little stress off of them.
Yeah.
For people who have a certain budget that they have to adhere to, they're still getting to work with new employees and not having to worry about their budget as much. So for me, that's a huge thing. But the other thing to me, and one thing that really prides on our heart at school, is it gets these kids out into the community. They are working in the community. They're not sitting on the couch playing video games or playing on their phone. They are actually going out and making the Cabot community a better place. And for me, that's huge, because we know what they can do. We know that they can do things. They can do things other than just sitting on the couch. And to me, that's where you're benefiting your community.
I mean, I can really see how it would really help the community in more ways than one, for sure. Always helping the community in more ways than one. What do you see from the families? How does it benefit the families?
A lot of the things when I think about as far as their family is, one of the things I didn't mention earlier is that the kids do get paid. They make minimum wage. So if they work 7 hours a week in our program, they get paid every 2 weeks. So this really helps the families out. Not that, don't get me wrong, I mean, $77 isn't enough to pay, bills and stuff like that, but it is enough just to help the families with the kids getting, maybe just extra little things that they want or whatever. And it also teaches them, responsibility with money. They can go and open a checking account. They can go and open a savings account. So it helps teach them that. One of the other things that I think about as far as the family, it teaches their kids dependability, responsibility, how to earn a living, work skills. And those are necessarily not maybe things that parents think about teaching their child. I know, our kids see day to day, that we go to work, we make a paycheck, we pay our bills, we do this. And you can see that every day, but it's different when there's a teacher there helping you and teaching you those things. So for me, that's the big thing about the families. The other thing is it's kind of the same thing like we talked about earlier. They all kind of fall under this umbrella for us. And so if the parents are needing help with the kids getting jobs after school, or going to another college, or hey, my child has a disability, with hearing or vision, or we've all of a sudden come into this, is there something that how can we expect him to have a job when he's got 21/20 vision? And so it's those little things that we can help the families with that they may not necessarily know just right offhand.
Yeah. So getting them ready for the next step. Like, what does that look like?
Well, so to me, we kind of coach our seniors. It's kind of how I look at it. We encourage them to start, complete, finalize, whether it's job applications, college applications, financial aid, paperwork, military, internships. We help them get along in that application process. It also helps them, like I said, with different agencies that they may be involved with. Arkansas Vocational Rehab, disability coordinators at colleges. That was a big thing that I've noticed within the last, couple of years. Our kids are not realizing that there's disability coordinators at the universities. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
Maybe they just didn't know. But so we'll invite disability coordinators in, from ASU, UCA, CERSI. We invite all of those people in and they talk with our kids. But then we also do programs, ADD, Easter Seals, Independent Living, CHCC, any of the programs that want to come in. We do a transition drop-in one night a year. And so we invite all of these different agencies, whether it's Social Security or anybody else that we think that can benefit our kids. We bring them all in. We get them started with them. There's just Project Search, Pathfinders. There's just so many different places that the kids can choose from that they just may not know about. Especially if you're, as I would say, Cabot born, and your parents went here, you've never lived outside of here, you don't know the access and resources that you can receive other places. So it's just opening their eyes for that next step to me.
Yeah.
And building bridges is one of the places that we talk about. That, like I said, they are partnered with us, and so they are one of the places that we encourage the parents to talk to see if that's going to be what their next step is going to be.
So I bet it's hard for you to invest all this time and so then you have to send them off. I mean, I'm sure they're like your kids. I would feel like that. I mean, you invest so much time into seeing their success. So do you have any little brag stories that you want to give us, or kids that or young adults that just really stuck out over the past 20 something years that you've been doing this?
Well, so the last 4 years, has all been transition for me. I do inclusion classes also this year. They put me in inclusion English seniors. So I do get seniors all day long. But so this is our 4th year with transition. Like I said, we do have some of the businesses that offer the kids full-time positions after we graduate. Now, last year was probably one of our hardest years as educators all around the United States, all around the world for that matter, as far as COVID. And so a lot of our businesses slacked off because, they were closed because of COVID or this or that, or, many other things. But we had a daycare that kept running because parents had to have somewhere to put their kids when they were going to work at the hospital or the fire department or the police department or wherever it was, that was still left open. And one of our girls had been working at a daycare in town, and they said, is there any way that you would want to come work for us now? I mean, you can still do your program, but we would love for you to come work for us now. So she calls me and she's like, what do you think about this? And I said, I think that's great. If you want to work extra, that'd be fine. You go ahead and do that. Well, and so the reason they wanted her, she was also, she was bilingual in Spanish and English. Her parents spoke mostly Spanish, and she spoke English and Spanish. One day she walks into work, and there's a little boy there, and he's Hispanic, and so he spoke predominantly Spanish, and he would not speak to any teachers. I guess just because there was just that lack of communication. There was a communication barrier. And the first day that she walked in, I mean, he just lit up and just started talking, blah, 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 and she was just, like I said, amazing student. And so she was offered the full-time job. She's still there working. And they're still one of our partners that we love dearly. We've had another one. He worked at the community center. And he just did great things. Good kid. Everybody loved him. Personality for days. And so after he graduated, they said, do you want to work here full time? Do you want to work full time? He's like, well, I don't really want to work full time, but more hours would be good. And so,
Right.
he went to work there, and it is really hard. When you get these kids, some of these kids I've seen before they were seniors, and so I knew them for a couple of years. And just seeing them go through their senior year is a huge up and down. And it's a huge growth area. To see them get their first paycheck, to see them on their first day of work, they are so incredibly nervous. I mean, we have some seniors come in and they're like, oh, bro, 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 big and bad,
Right.
and nothing bothers them. And then like 10 minutes before they go to work, they're like, oh my God, and they are worried to death. And I'm like, what happened to that cool senior that walked through the door a few minutes ago? So it's getting to see all of those things that sometimes regular teachers, I guess, just don't get to see, or teachers who don't teach students with disabilities don't get to see.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, when they get that first paycheck, I mean, they are on fire. And we make sure we go around the whole school. We go to the administrators. We go to Julie Ward, which is our big dog supervisor here in Cabot. We go to her and show her their checks. And our administrators and counselors and teachers, they all just make a huge deal out of.
And just to think how far that we have come as a society,
huge. Huge, because if you think about it, I can think of even 20 years ago,
right,
there not being the amount of students with special needs in jobs as there are now, or certain businesses who wouldn't allow students with special needs to work in their business or whatever. But it's just like you said earlier, when you realize that you're good at something, it doesn't matter what disabilities you have. It doesn't matter. It just matters that that's what you love.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And that's what we try to do. We try to find what they love and make them money at it.
I have a couple of more questions. One thing that I do see as a parent and talking to other parents in the community, I see a lot of fear out of the parents when those kids are reaching that junior, going into senior. Is there, I know sometimes just saying it'll be okay, sometimes that's just not enough. Yeah. So do you have any words of wisdom? I mean, I hate to put you on the spot, but
no,
do you have anything that maybe some of these parents need to hear about, what is their last year of school, and somebody, watching, kind of really watching over them and ensuring that they're being successful?
My biggest thing, is be involved. Make sure that you're involved in every process that goes on. Make sure you're at every conference that goes on. Make sure you're involved in every decision that goes on in your child's education. Make sure that you go visit places, even places that you think may not ever be on your child's register. Whether you're talking about colleges, whether you're talking about different facilities. For example, we have a student that's going to ASU Jonesboro this fall, and I'm sure when she was going through her career that her parents probably never thought that she would be at ASU Jonesboro.
Right.
So always make sure that you go to those places, whether you think they could benefit from it or not, make sure you go. We had another student when I worked in Bologna who really needed a certain facility, and his parents were scared to death because they had always heard bad things about the facility. And we took them on a field trip to the facility, and they got to see all the good things that the facility does. So my other thing is don't just weed somebody out because of things that you've heard in the past. Go and see for yourself. We have places here, in Arkansas that sometimes get a bad name, and that's not always the case once you go there. So always make sure that you go and visit these places.
Yeah, I know that I've talked to many parents that have gone and they have visited Fayetteville or they visited ASU, and and then they walk away and they're like, oh my goodness, it's time for my baby to go off and be on their own. And they have great support there. They have great support there for these kids to be successful. So, Well, Donna, one last thing, let's kind of go back to, if someone isn't seeing this or doesn't know about this in their program, you think that the first stop needs to be with maybe just start with the principal and kind of work the way up, and
Absolutely.
what exactly? And
yeah, I would start with your principal of your school district. If you already are in special ed and you're already receiving services, I would say your special education folder holder is what we call them, but it's that person that holds your conferences, does all the things and make sure you have your accommodations, modifications, all that stuff. I would start with principal, and then, make sure you tell your special ed person, because they may know off the bat somewhere too. But I think definitely starting with those two people is where I would start if I needed those services.
And it's never too early to start asking.
No, absolutely not.
Even if your kid's in grade school, start asking.
I agree. 100%.
What's available, because it may, if there's nothing there, it may take you 2 years or 3 years or 5 years to
you
really
may be the
one to get something in
you
place.
may be the one, yeah. You may be the one to show everybody, okay, this is something our school district needs.
Right.
Because they may not know
exactly
they need
right. That's exactly right. Well, again, thank you. Thank you for everything that you do for our youth. Thank you for everything that you're bringing to the community. I can see how much you love our community. It's just, I saw that you just about teared up a few times thinking about them. So thank you. Thank you. I just can't thank you enough. And thank you for coming on and sharing all of your wonderful knowledge with us.
You bet.
Have a good night.
You too.